Arctic Eggs asks whether we can fry eggs on top of Mount Everest. It is a question so far beyond the realm of conventional thought that it cannot help but be immediately rebutted. The objection is as irresistible as the immediate darkness it resides in, but at the same time, not as captivating as the initial question it so effortlessly squelches. An outspoken guard, the embodiment of a defeatist mentality, suggests that as one side of the egg cooks, the other side will freeze. This logic is soon overrun by ambiguity, as with an air of either intimidation or compassion, he proposes that it's something to remember next time. His words sit at severe odds with his dull-witted look, and lost in this kerfuffle is the possibility that he may be right. The conversation flows into a briefing of our history. The guard's boss, whoever that may be, stripped you of all your main functions. All you can do is walk and cook. It's at this point where I wanted to bombard the guard to the same degree the immediate darkness bombarded me, with questions like, who is this boss? How did he carve me down to a marching cook? Why is it so dark? What do you mean you want an egg cooked on both sides as always? What else of my history am I missing? Why did I try to escape? And in spite of his logical response to the question, can you cook eggs on top of Mount Everest? It's just too much logic for me to sweep under the rug. All of this occurring amidst swarming blackness, resigned poultry, warbling characters, sudden camera pans and a rumbling drone, felt like the game's retort. A sensory hit, suggesting a bleak world without relief. Though as I left the mouth of Black Infinity behind and settled in, the more I started to question the nature of where we are, what we saw, and our character's role in it all. First impressions of the world are strong. Adjectives like surreal, uncomfortable, and abrasive come to mind. Blue spotlights draw attention to life, but the overpowering purple haze of the silent sky carries an air of incomplete living. It's as if this place is somehow wrong and cut off from the rest of the world, to the extent that no matter how much one delves in communion and search for purpose, it's all for naught under such conditions. The buildings have the architectural charm of a herd of elephant seals, and the presence of one too. They look like giant walls. They're all connected by metal bridges, and each level is accessible via coiling stairs. Despite the verticality, it cannot defeat the lingering claustrophobia. Pockets of space are connected by thin platforms, and the pockets themselves are so small a group of three create a crowd. There's very little room to maneuver, so much so that if we take a mere 3 steps forward, we're already looking over the edge. They feel like concrete dog shelters. To the left of these buildings stands a tower. A higher class of being probably lives here, implied by its existence in singular form, and its distinct composition from its blocky neighbours. Meanwhile, a lady in a brown fur jacket and black pants stands before us. Her outfit is enlivened by a white tube coming out of her pocket, which flows up her body and circles her lower face. As we start a conversation, the camera shifts to a low-angle shot. She provides some backstory about our job. She mentions that the previous poultry peddler didn't last long, whatever that means. The camera zooms in on her inhaler and bloodshot eyes. She requests an egg to be cooked on both sides. The egg is always cooked on both sides, isn't it? But wait, what? She wants a cigarette cooked too? Is she cold? No, she just likes the flavour it adds. It's already lit, so there's a time limit. This was my first conversation with a local just hanging around, but my preconceived notions of a hopeless character were quickly turned away by her frankness. She shows her appreciation for our culinary skills and is so enamored by our talent she becomes sentimental, labeling their interaction both unforgettable and important. This interaction eased a lot of my premature tension and discomfort, and dispelled a lot of the actual mystery I felt from the city, which made me look at it as more of a weird dream than our character's reality. We press on, chatting people up and cooking their utmost desires. Eggs, fish, sizzling meat, bullets even, and flavoured cigarettes. We cook the best 2 eggs for one man and become the long-awaited cook for another. He's held some fish rations for a decade and chose us as right for the task. He proclaims he won't forget this moment, and neither will I. There's a recurring theme of honesty and humility in these interactions. But where are we? What on earth is going on? And why are people acting like this? It's 2091 in Antarctica. Geographically, the city is on Earth. This is true because the fish tells us so, but it exists absolutely elsewhere, and habitual rule breakers. The bar is set very low. Some unlucky people have tried to cook their way to freedom, but just cannot do enough to get out. The locals reside in their fellows' harmlessness, with most seemingly watching each day pass by with little energy to pull it back. Further to their financial woes, they are angry and mentally depleted. As put by one local, I just want to feel content for once. If you ever see me smoking tobacco, you know I'm depressed. Chances are he will be, because cigarettes run rampant. Though this is hardly surprising when they're marketed as the most agreeable way of ignoring life, to an audience with it so far deep by indolence that all they can recall are the fumes that have bettered them that state in the first place. It's sad because this marketing reiterates the idea that habituation does not equate to resolution. If one becomes accustomed to a problematic environment, it doesn't negate the existence of underlying issues. There's a lingering impression that many people here are not fully alive. They are left with nothing. As this guard says, no one leaves here. The people need us. Like actually. Not in a corrupt way, I think. To understand what is going on, first let's get to know the character we play. He's a poultry peddler by function and a nameless husk by form. He can only walk and cook, yet he seamlessly fits into the system they're built in. His job is not a silly charade, but a streamlined use of all his resources at maximum capacity, designed to provide an essential service to the city. Currently, he's the only person that is allowed to cook eggs, since consumption of chickens is prohibited. As pivotal of a purpose he has, as timely as many hungry people view him, I don't think he would consider himself as anything close to heroic. It's difficult to even look at him as someone that lives in the city. He's a defenseless mute, searching for requests to be made, knowing full well that once they are made, they have to be granted. His existence is akin to a flight of stairs, indispensable when needed, but otherwise transient. He's consumed in his hierarchical function to such an inconceivable degree that he has, by all accounts, forfeited any form of self and individual worth. At least this seems to be the case. But how can this be? Surely our character has retained some semblance of self and worth. To answer this question, one just needs to look around. A lot is gathered from observing the environment and talking to the locals. I'll look at some examples in chapter 2, but what sticks out to me is that too many words are bafflingly at odds with the surroundings that roamers inhabit. It constantly snows, a rainbow wouldn't go amiss, and everyone is casually on the edge of death with every step they take. Sincerity shines brighter than the sun here, yet no amount of honesty can please their yesterday, and no amount of integrity can please their tomorrow. And yes, I understand that this is a piece of absurdist media, but there are qualities here, like the aesthetic, the quirky gameplay, the themes covered and stories told, which created an emotional attachment that, perhaps for sanity's sake or simply due to interest, made me want to find a silver lining, or better yet, a positive spin to what the game presented. I wouldn't call it a case of wrong judgment on my part. This is demonstrably an absurdist game, and I'm completely aware of that. I just wanted to look at it through a lens far less demoralizing. What got me to where I wanted to go was the notion that the surreal was a visualization of our character's feelings, made manifest by his primal desire to show it. He is infernal in ambition, but irreversibly withered, and the incongruity of his predicament makes me wonder, can he feel? Given how strikingly honest this world and its inhabitants are, I cannot help but think he can. Absurd penalties can sometimes determine a person's existence, leaving them to rot like a fallen nuts amongst the trunks of towering trees. In his case, The consequences of a failed escape have left behind a person that is considered ambitious, but only within the confines of his punished existence. Moreover, foolish ambition can also sometimes melt one's reality, blurring the line between imagination and what's real. What he sees is a kind of artificial surgery, a fusion of reality and perception, interactions influenced by his personal wants, but unavoidably burdened by the weight of citywide inertia. What I believe we see are an aesthetic, imagery, and dialogue whose sheer distances from normality are matched only by the candidness they so effortlessly project. It is a look into a decaying world through the manipulative lens of a protagonist in need of self-fulfillment. Knowing full well the difficulty of ever reaching it, he projects his inner values as self-encouragement on a populace that has forgotten itself. With this projection angle established, I want to now explore its prevalence. I like to view the dialogue in the game not as conversations, but instead as internal monologues that the character is having with himself, based on or influenced by the underlying traits of the person he's in dialogue with. In other words, the people are vessels for the character to motivate himself. He gets to explore his values and desires like a harmless stream amongst the weight of an oppressed city. So why are things the way they are? Well, the authority of the city goes by the name of the Saint of Six Stomachs. He resides in the soaring tower I mentioned earlier. It stands silently and judges mercilessly. He has his own desires, namely to Neurovault. As one of the locals aptly states, the Saint juiced our city and left us with a rotting pulp. This rotting pulp has created the defeated mentality. Even the marvelous brain succumbs to the echoes of stomachs. The people have become prisoners of their own resignation. They are not responsible for how things are, but they have to face them. Sure, they are free to mingle, dance, eat, and learn, but they exist in a kind of limbo. Dread and decay have choked them, and there's no capacity to revolt. Hidden beneath the thick layer of defeat lie aspirations scattered all over the city. It just takes some intimate digging. Obviously, our character is not wearing telepathic, psychotherapeutic, reality-bending glasses, but if he was, it will feel right at home. After all, this is what he likely has for a hit. Like I said, it's just him projecting. They have dormant aspirations, but no will to manifest them. So what do we find? At the fish markets is an old man who's denied the sweet release of death. He's sitting on a wooden barricade and missing most of his limbs. "My son won't let me die," he laments. We learn the man's limbs are being replaced by his dead sons. They're taking his tongue next. He can feel the son's presence too. Even after death, willpower sings to those that listen. We cook his catch as he admires our beautiful eyes for the first and final time. He dives into the water, either to fish or to die. Nearby, another man can't stand people eating his fish. He knows the joy it brings them. He can catch, but he can't cook, because no one will teach him. And so we oblige, guiding the pan in his hand. Reality intrudes as he acknowledges he cannot attempt going around cooking for people. Just like that, his motivation crumbles. The guards are not immune either. One guard says, "I want to go to karaoke and sing a song that's not on karaoke." I find it hard to properly articulate the indestructible disappointment in this line. It's hilarious, absurd, but boy is it tragic. One person grieves over the depletion of drinking cups because drones stopped stocking the vending machines months ago. Alas, bowls were the substitute. He deals with this by dancing like a freshly salted octopus and warns how they're never going back. Drones don't have morals, so they don't care, but at least everyone seems appropriately dressed for the snowfall. Finally, one man talks about his need for silence when peeing. He dislikes the whispers of dolphins and/or the clucking of chickens. His friend is unsettled and conveys his discomfort. The topic is a private matter, all things considered, but it's told like it is. Despite the candor, his friend doesn't play ball. He acknowledges this and moves on. Perhaps this is a nice little life lesson to stop pushing something unreasonable when it makes people feel uncomfortable. These are just some examples from a litany. Every corner of the city has a character, and every nook resides in converging worlds. They're all honest conversations about mundane scenarios, seasoned with absurd flamboyance. Whether we measure their aspirations by their potency to make good, or from a standpoint of how innately silly they are, they make sense in an intuitive way. They humanize their owners, and demonstrate the abundance of this spiriting ambience. However, there is one person who is unlike any of them, one who mirrors our determination. Of course, it's the lady in brown from the beginning of the game. As a reminder, after we cooked for her, she alluded to the importance of that moment. She was right. She's essentially the second main character, on her own journey, but not without similarities to ours. Much like our character, she capitalizes on what's left of her own free will. Yes, her life is much less confined than ours. She's less of a slave. She's also different from anyone else we meet because she actually moves the locations. I think that says a lot about her. We encounter her 6 times. On the balcony, in the prison, in front of the club, inside the aquarium, at the fish market, and one more time a bit later. In the prison, she's debating a guard about whether one can fry eggs on top of Mount Everest. The guard suggests scrambling eggs are a possibility, so no side is cold for too long. The lady retorts, asking whether the risk is even worth it at that point. The guard backs his argument by claiming the achievement of getting to the top dwarfs the notion of frying an egg. She wants to be the first to fry an egg on the mountain. The guard maintains his stance, saying that being the first person to do anything is impressive, but it doesn't substitute for quality. Irritated, she says that he doesn't get it. Later, she discusses the state of an egg with another local. The local brings up the value of meal prepping and suggests pre-cooking the egg. No amount of sage advice will convince her because in her eyes it constitutes cheating. While art that matters isn't really appreciated by everyone, an additional consideration is to understand why it's made. But simply to understand, not dictate. Dictating will lead to a dead end. Next, we find her alone in an aquarium. Perhaps she's conscious a dolphin will not argue. She asks the question, and as expected, the conversation is short-lived. We feed a whale and are on our way. Finally, we catch her in dialogue with another guard. The conversation is a bit of a train wreck. As always, it begins with the same question. The guard says no, and believes the lady has an ulterior motive. He thinks that she takes comfort in knowing that she's expected to fail. If she succeeds, that's great because she defied the odds. If she fails, well, no one is disappointed because they figured as much. I do agree with the guard in the sense that I find her motivation to be covetous and egocentric. However, I disagree with his assessment that she's not confident. She's curious and eager to do it the way she feels is right, but sets up defensive mechanisms in the process in case she fails. As the guard said, she has aspirations, but so do many people in this city. She believes that her aspiration is pure enough to lead to fulfillment. She's both determined and physically capable, and there's great value to that if one ever wants to get out of hell. Our role in this game is predetermined. We exist to feed the city inhabitants, nothing more, nothing less. Once we feed 27 people, we're permitted to enter the sacred tower. No signs of life are inside until blackness ominously encircles a message. One still hungry. At the end of the bridge resides a stomach in a glass container. A deep drone fills the space. We interact with the stomach, and out comes the trusty frying pan. 2 eggs. Once cooked, the camera darts to another body part. 3 eggs. The sound of sizzling is the only semblance of familiarity offered. Tense screeching enlivens the soundscape. The next container has a ribcage inside. 4 eggs. Piano sounds escalate, as if distinct superiority hasn't made itself evident enough already. 5 eggs. A heart-shaped chicken or a chicken-shaped heart. 6 eggs. To an audience of chickens in containers, like souvenirs in vitrines. and a head of a saint with one final leg. His gaze is as piercing as the silence itself, and his measured blinks are arranged as moments in time, each more expectant than the last. Can you fry eggs on top of Mount Everest? There's the question again. It's all very eerie. Obviously, the saint has never considered such a question. Why would he? Immortal things don't care about trivial things. He removes his hand from the glass tank and offers it to us. He forces our hand to relinquish the pan as it falls into the abyss below, never to be seen again. His final message as we embark on a one-way trip is let me know. What a bastard. Off to Mount Everest we go as the credits roll. As far as the saint is concerned, our story ends here, because that is the conclusion he assigned us. This was all predetermined. Serve the hungry and you leave was what we were instructed. Everything from here on out is of no interest to him, but it is the final resting spot for an ambitious duo. For the sixth and final time, we find the lady in brown, gazing upon the wreck of the plane that brought us here to the mountain. Up here, everything is cold as life down there, and no one can save us. It's as cold as silence, and we never say a word. Cooked on both sides as always. Absolutely beautiful. It's funny, she came with us on the same journey, with the same goal, yet her motivation couldn't possibly be any more different. She didn't even climb the mountain herself, so to some, the victory is skin deep, though having a local share aspiration instills it with a certain relatability and familiarity. It's a common goal and those are nice. The heart has reason for which reason knows nothing, and if this is her path to an accomplished life, then all we should do is be happy for her. With the final human interaction over, there is one thing left to do. Amidst the relentless snowfall, the final push to the summit is a sight as dreamy as the music itself. I wouldn't call it a hallelujah moment, that is too grandiose for such a personal affair, and a far cry from any triumphant Bioshock reveal. Instead, it flourishes in its unnoteworthiness, that it overshoots, and so it becomes soul-touching. It becomes absolutely noteworthy. Yearning synths intrude our walk, like murmurs of the miserable people we met along the way, their echoes suspended above and bodies eroded below, unfit for deliverance. They're not angry at our character. As encouraging as these projections were on his journey, no amount of artificial surgery can undo what's already set in stone. At the summit sits a quiet friend adorned with a recognizable symbol, a question mark, only in shape, but in the moment as important as this, it holds the weight of a white light from the mouth of infinity. It would be a sin for the question, can you fry eggs on top of Mount Everest, to not cross our mind one final time. After all, it was the inviting question that started all of this. Everyone here, including our character, knows the answer. It's absolutely beautiful, but he will never see it for himself. Did he know? Did he not know? Or in the goodness of his heart, did he not wish to know that there are people out there so far disassociated from humanity that they would rule over it menacingly from a distance for nothing but personal enlightenment and without a morsel of mercy? When one dilutes immortality with a pungent selfishness, it creates a void so gluttonous that one stomach will not two. Not two, not even five. To the saints, we are not worthy to drift alongside those that made our bed. We are not immortal. Do 20 perfectly cooked eggs satiate the saint enough to serve us a happy ending? Is serving his city enough for absolution? No. We are now a waste of skin hanging from the loop of a rope. Though this was a long time coming. Our character's existential futility was made obvious from the get-go, and his crushing fate was hinted at. The guard's defeatist mentality was the hint. Perhaps he was trying to help. After all, we need them. In any case, he anticipated our defeat, and it came to be in the moment when our character had to give up the very thing that permitted his passage to fulfillment in the first place. Try as he might, his fall into despair was a conceivable affair, and this was its horrible culmination. Despite this, by grasping at small victories, even if they're not actually real, he can feel a semblance of positive emotions. There's so much one can do to give a journey new meaning. Even at the journey's end, one only ought to shift their perspective and embrace it. As his body freezes to death, the chicken serves to warm his soul, reminding him of a pure and empathetic journey, no matter how unavoidably imaginary it was. It is unlikely that experiencing Arctic eggs from a disassociated perspective was the developer's intention, nor was it my intent. Within a range that is considered reasonable, or whatever that may be, there's no right or wrong way to interpret ambiguous media. This isn't the type of art that is designed to be deliberately understood, but rather to be interpreted in a way that is most meaningful to you. I don't consider my interpretation any more right or deeper than other interpretations. However, I consider it more palatable to me at this moment in my life. I found it an interesting angle to explore that didn't come with the struggle of any conflicting ideas and viewpoints. I was attracted to the idea of a character that humanizes a city for his own benefit, aiming for some form of achievement with the cards he's been dealt. We always want more than we are given, yet end up wanting so little when we are wiped clean. In the case of our character, he was caught trying to escape and locked to his fate. In such a state, it makes even the tiniest bit of comfort worth seeking, and the tiniest amount found worth cherishing. As such, the value of his frying pan cannot be overstated. His life was governed by it just as he governed what he did with it. He was beheld to it by force and cooked for people. He provided what little meaning he could to their existence, simply because he answered their calls and unearthed the purpose their defeated selves couldn't be bothered to show. The nail in the coffin was the cold indifference of the saint, who gave him a burial on the summit. While the frustration of what was lost hit harder than anything that came before it, it couldn't revoke the restfulness in knowing that he and a certain someone made the most of what remained. I hope you enjoyed the video, and there's so much more I wanted to talk about. Like the way the posters plastered around the city walls are a nod to the Dadaism movement after World War I, the game's version being a revolt to the war with Argentina over Antarctica. I briefly touched on the music during the ending scene, but I shut down the desire to further explore how it sits intimately alongside what we see. Composer Cameron Jinux, apologies if I mispronounced that, did a fantastic job in creating something absurdist, evocative, and introspective. And finally, the visuals and character designs were also open areas to explore. All would easily be an extra 20 minutes of me yapping, so maybe another day. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, click the left bubble for a video on Dark Souls 2, and click the right bubble where I talk about Dead Space's audio for over an hour. Thank you, and until next time.